Welcome, welcome. I'm just gonna share the link on X real quick. Um, I just I'll wait for a few people to come in. Oh man, this is crazy. I wasn't necessarily ready to do it, but I don't know. I don't know if you're ever really ready to do this. So let's see. Let's see if we're live. Okay, we're live. Sweet. All right. So um, I think people have heard. Well, Trump's reaction to all the pressure about Epstein has been very interesting, I will say, and I'm not. I just want to get to the bottom of it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to get to the bottom of it. So I'm just going to um, show a bunch of things that I found, and hopefully that gives some at least some bearings, some new information, because a lot of people kind of like rehash the same thing, which I find is not really helpful. And I found some themes that seem to be really predictive um, as far as trying to figure out what's going on, who the sides are, and it's very very weird. As you can see, this is just and this is just one of many, kind of trying to tie. Each time I do a chart, I find a person that I didn't really expect to be more central um, than they were, and then I start a new chart and a new chart. I just started one actually with Rupert Murdoch, which has been really interesting. Lots going on here. But to answer the question, which I will get, I will get back to this, but it was kind of interesting. Like, how is it that the Simpsons are so predictive of things, and then when you realize like Rupert Murdoch, who is was deeply involved with the Bohemian Grove, he owns News Corp, which owns the Simpsons. So if and then there's connections, like where did Bohemian Grove kind of launch into the status that it became was through the Manhattan Project, which turned into DARPA, right? And so, when you kind of follow the whole the DARPA route, the fact that the best defense system would be, this fifth generational psychological warfare of psyops and all this weird stuff is, propaganda. And that was something that, even Russia said and Germany said, is that America had by far the best propaganda, because it didn't seem like propaganda. And, it does lead to some interesting questions, and I'm going to try not to shy away from it. I try to put people that were actually in the Epstein little black book. I'll put like a screenshot of their name, right? You got like Michael Bloomberg, right? And yeah, so and I think that there's multiple categories. Like, I don't know exactly what category. I mean, a lot of people like to harp on, the fact that Trump's, that Howard Lutnick was neighbors of Epstein. And, it was kind of interesting that his sister was literally of the people like helping fundraise, you know, of like maybe six main people, at least two of them, which was, Alec Baldwin was, you know, and Tony Blair, both in the Epstein book. So but I think that there's more to it than just playing degrees of separation. There might not be. I have no idea. But one thing is that there's the main political thing is actually a left and a right, and so what I wanted to get into um, is this is where I think things started, right? Um, because like what would bring Elon Musk and Trump, like all these unlikely kind of people together against um, against what, right? And Elon Musk said George Soros is like cancer on humanity, right? And the whole propaganda machine, the whole mainstream media was going to, and Wall Street was going to cancel him, get him kicked off his company and everything. Like they threatened him in broad daylight, like on the news, that's like, we will literally destroy you if you don't redact what you said about George Soros. And it's like, well, why does George Soros matter? That's like kind of weird, right? Um, so one trend I've noticed is usually when I find someone that seems to be involved, they usually have little letters above their name. So this one is that he's a fellow from the British Academy, and the reason that matters is because of the arts, right? That the art and propaganda are is one, right? Not that all artists are propagandists, but all propagandists are artists, crappy artists. But um, so George Soros it's easier to tear things down, but actually, I guess we'll rewind a little bit further, right? So there was fascism, which is nationalism. It's just like, hey, our country needs to work hard and actually be productive and actually build stuff. And then there's globalism. So those are kind of the two sides. And fascism is typically right wing, and globalism is typically left wing, right? I can't really imagine it being. I mean, I guess you can kind of have localized left stuff, but it is this nationalistic versus globalist. And something that's interesting is there was the Helsinki Act, which was this started in 1975, and it was trying to get good cooperation between the Soviet Union and the United States, the East and the West, but really, this became like an NGO. Like it was this. When you look at one, there's monitoring of the implementation, right? So that means there's some higher power that can monitor, right? And what was interesting is here, and I'm definitely not a Henry Kissinger fan, like at all. But whether you like some or not, you can like you can see when they feel strongly about something, there's probably a reason why. They said Henry Kissinger said to Ford, "We never wanted it, but went along with the Europeans. It's meaningless. It's just a grandstand play to the left," right? So these kind of councils that started to come up, and it's interesting because Ronald Reagan made these accords, this Helsinki Accords, a centerpiece of his campaign, which is this human rights focused, left wing thing. And why would that be the case? Because Ronald Reagan, and this is something like I have no idea why more people don't talk about. There was the Iran-Contra affair, right? They were running the biggest drug. I mean, that was the real reason, one of the real reasons why the Soviet Union and the United States were at war is, Germany through Bayer had, kind of the corner on the heroin market, and the IG Farben. And so now suddenly that, international drug trade was up for grabs. And, a lot of the opium was grown in Afghanistan. And so it was always split. There's always been this war for Afghanistan. So it's, yeah. So that tension, because whoever owns the drug trade kind of owns all of trade. And there's two, man, it's hard not to skip around a lot, which is why I haven't done a stream yet. And I actually should turn on comments. I didn't even, it's been a while. Oh, hey, sweet. Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, so, man, let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll just, post. Oh, that wasn't the right one. Dang it. Okay. Well, I'll just stick with this. Anyway, like there's two ways to connect the East and the West. There's through, Constantinople, and there's through, around the Horn of Africa. And so those are kind of the two main things. And the new world order started when the Rothschilds bought the Suez Canal, which they bought it because England baited Russia to attack the Ottoman Empire. They said they'd be on their side. France said they'd be on the side of the Ottomans. And then what actually happened was then France and England sat back and watched, Russia and the Ottomans destroy each other, and then stepped in and both took over both of them. So, yeah, super messed up. But then you see the development of, so the Rothschilds end up owning the Suez Canal, and then they started the South African company, De Beers, to basically control, after the Boer War, South Africa. So all trade from East and West, they could control. And that power structure has been unchallenged. Pretty much anyone who has tried to challenge it has gotten killed. So let's see. So to kind of deepen the, and it has been always built on this kind of liberal university. It's like the university structure is what is, as was propelling this. And then you have the nonprofits, and so the universities are this, like they send people out to either be a part of a nonprofit or be part of these different political groups or the financial institutions, and they've all just kind of married into each other. And it all does come back to, France. And it's interesting why. So let's see. So I was looking at who even started the Helsinki Accords, and George H.W. Bush was part of it, right? He was part of the Iran-Contra affair. And one of the first things that Trump did, and Elon, was get rid of all the NGO money, all the USAID money that, comes from taxpayers. So you have these NGOs, which, I mean, there's lots of ways you can kind of monetize it, but, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all those other ones, I don't know that they were really putting down the money. They would say they're going to put up money, but really they were just trying to pull in the government's money. And yeah, so there's the agencies, and that money, the USAID money, was made to basically start businesses in other countries, as kind of expansions of our international interests. And that's why, I mean, the Iran-Contra affair, they were doing multiple of those things at the same time. They would try and get money from the drug trade, and then they would use that to do coups around the country, right? One of the first places they tried to do a coup was Iran, which, has caused all the drama that we've seen since. Countries typically don't like it when you do a coup in their country. So just kind of diving into one of these, which is the president of France. He actually was president for a long time, and it's interesting because he comes from like a right wing terrorist group, but he actually is communist, and he even says why he changed to communism, and it was so that they could not get voted out, right? So they added in women voters so that they would vote for him. and then you see Winston Churchill involved, which he's also connected to the Rothschilds, which that's kind of the main problem is the Rothschilds went into the Bank of England, helped them set up their central bank there. And that was the first viable central bank. And it spread throughout the world. And that's why you see all these royal societies that was the way of incorporating other people into this system it's like they don't want to govern you. So it's like, okay, you can have your own royal society. So they'll have their names. And then you can have powerful people join those societies that help, interconnect things. So you stay in control, but also ultimately the central banking cartel is in control. So England has been the problem. And that's why, and that's why it's interesting that Epstein had a very influential spot in the mega group, which was all these billionaires, most of which were in Canada, which is owned by Britain, and it's under the crown, and so that's where most of the corruption was coming from, and there's like a lot to that. Also, a lot, but there's like a whole nother element of that, which was the schism in Freemasonry that happened in the late 1800s, and they start the Grand Orient Lodge of France they split from the Lodge of England because they said, okay, you only have to worship a higher power. It doesn't have to be God or any kind of normal religion. And so this is what started a lot of the literally overt Satanism. So, they were the ones in charge of the ancient, the rite of Memphis, Mizraim, who Alister Cwley was part of, and also Rudolf Steiner, right? So Rudolf Steiner is interesting because I've read quite a bit about him actually, and it's like, okay, like I'm not sure how how primitive you'd have to be impressed by him and his ideas, but apparently King Charles is a big fan, right? And I promise this is getting back. I am probably gonna go on some tangents, so I'm just definitely going to apologize in advance because this is a really weird thing. So you got King Charles and Rudolf Steiner, and so the South African company was started by Cecil Rhodes, and he said that the Freemasonry was too boring, right? He's like, it's just old men sitting in a room, falling asleep or whatever. And so that's where just this, these hedonistic rituals kind of came was from that. And they, so he was the one that was heading up that whole trade. but the Rothschilds were the ones that were doing all the financing for it. And so in that kind of, there's this Freemasonry, and then in that era, there evolved Theosophy, and Rudolf Steiner was part of that. And man, there's so much. So yeah, we'll get to have a whole. I made a whole mind map just on Theosophy because it is so central, and it's interesting because they said, he had this idea of a threefold socialism, that you had to compartmentalize liberty in cultural life, equality in political life, and fraternity in economics. And so it's super ironic that you have like all these Greek letter societies are what are controlling business and politics. And so there's like this fraternal aspect to it, which just messes the whole thing up. So it's like, you can't really, this was in opposition to Bolshevism, mostly because the original, some of the Trotskyists and whatnot, like Bolshevism kind of got taken over. There was, schisms within it. And so some of the original Bolsheviks were like, well, this isn't going in the direction that we wanted it to. And so they kind of restarted it back in England. And, if you haven't looked into the satanic kind of influence, and I don't mean that in like just a pejorative way of like, oh, it's like bad. No, like literally like look into Karl Marx and Satanism, and like it's really dark. I mean, like I think 2 of his kids did like suicide pacts with their lover, and then their lover just didn't kill themselves, and then super weird. So yeah, I highly recommend. So this like led me, and I found I just was anyway. So because there's like a video of King Charles talking about how much he likes Rudolf Steiner, and I saw that like a week ago, and so I was just digging further into it, and then I found that there was King Charles, in London, 2014, set up, the solution. The solution he sees is in the new inclusive capitalistic system conceived outwardly by the Rothschild family, the Rothschilds and the Vatican. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Because, the Rothschilds were who bailed out the Catholic Church. Actually, I don't remember what year that was. But, they do have a very strong connection there. But that was their ultimate response to Karl Marx, is this new inclusive capitalism. So let's kind of look into what even is that, right? So what was this? Oh yeah, that was just Alister Cwley when he was initiated in Paris, right, at the Grand Lodge of France, right, in 1904. Oh, what do you know? The flash crash of 1906, and it's not like some grand conspiracy to pull all this stuff together. Like when you actually like look at what's just like historical facts, like, I'll probably get to it, but Alister Cwley literally doing special effects for the early Hollywood movies with Harry Houdini, right? And the kind of mafia people in charge of Hollywood and what they were all about. So let's see. Wait, I thought shoot. Okay, maybe. Sorry. Shoot. It's not earned. Dang it. Man, doing this live is a trip, that is for sure. Did I put it in? Yeah. Okay, cool. Sweet. Found it. that was, that was a little scary. Okay. So you have this new inclusive capitalism, which is definitely an oxymoron because like capitalism is capital focused, socialism is society focused. That's the distinction. We don't actually live in a capitalist society, right? Because we have social programs. So we have a mix, and it's pretty terrible mix, to be honest. But so when people talk like the difference, so what is capitalism, what is socialism? It's anyway, we haven't seen anything pure on either side. But so around this new inclusive capitalism, right, by the Rothschilds and by the Vatican, the two main people that were heading it up was Lynn Forster de Rothschild and this guy Jeffrey Ubin. There's a couple other people. There's not as much about him. George Hamill. Did I find anything about George Hamill? I can't remember. Just that. Yeah. So obviously there's always going to be a connection. So the George Hamill guy, I guess that's the shortest one. So he's got 3 vineyards in Sonoma Valley. So who else has vineyards in Sonoma County? Well, so they have 3 of 36 certified biodynamic vineyards in California. Well, who has the other ones? It's Gavin Newsome, right? So he's got like Plum Jack, which he started with the Getty family, which is totally mafia. And the reason that it's important that they're LEED certified is that they basically get access to all this grant money. So your power bill for anyone in California, like a huge chunk of that is literally going to green energy. And they have all these different ways of basically taxing everyone that's not using this, and then just giving all that money to 36 different vineyards. This guy owns 3 of them, and Gavin Newsome owns, I think he has at least 2 of them. And so it's insane how the money laundering goes, but it was not a shock to see that. So let's see. Another one that's just so everything comes back to there's kind of 2 main banks, JP Morgan and UBS. So it's kind of interesting that one of the who was it? This was Ava Zeladnik. She was director of global sustainability and ESG equity research at UBS, right? And of course, she's working with like Charles Oppenheimer. But you see all the different companies that they're working with, and Jeffrey Ubin, he came from Blum Capital, and Blum Capital. This was an interesting one, right? Richard Charles Blum was an American investor and the husband of the United States Senator Dianne Feinstein. Boom, comes right back to the California thing. And the reason it comes back to the California thing is like out of the universities, the ones that keep coming up as far as being part of this whole liberal propaganda problem is you have Berkeley, you have Columbia, and you have Harvard are just kind of the main culprits. And there's other ones with those ones are like a huge portion of it. And so of course, he has a master's of business from Berkeley, right? So you got the California politics. So you have someone there to vote in all these policies. And then of course, there's like a lot here, but he's a trustee of the Brookings Institute. So, this might be like kind of scattered, but if anything, I just hope that like some of these, like you dive in for yourself and just like when you start seeing these things, like just notice Brookings Institute, because the Bronfman family, who was part of the Jeffrey Epstein mega group, they were a huge part of the Brookings Institute. So another one that's super random, man, this was like a weird rabbit hole, is the Siva Foundation. I definitely recommend looking into that because, you know, if anyone who likes lo-fi hip hop music, there's all these like Alan Watts and Ram Dass, uh, like music speeches. And I listen to them a lot. It's very relaxing. I like a lot of things they say, but some of it's like really, really bad propaganda. And it's just interesting because Ram Dass is, who started at Harvard, just randomly goes to India and is working with this like random, like this random, like, ashram, which, anyway, that's a whole nother kind of thing. And all these other huge people, like I think, Jeff Bezos and all these people like Google, like Larry. I'll have to have another sheet. I have the Siva Foundation. It's just like mind-boggling who all is connected to this totally random hut with this fat guy that just lays there like half naked and says just random things. Like how many powerful people are connected to that? And I guess I could get into that a little bit. Well, maybe, I don't know, another time. And then also Geffen. So it was also kind of interesting that when Elon Musk suggested who should be arrested, I actually like this suggestion, like, because if they start with the whole Epstein thing, like it depends on where they start. And kind of what I wanted to get to is that in 2010, things really changed, that there was like a divergence. And I'm not trying to be an apologist or anything, but one, we are just one player on the world stage. And, anyway, so our international people, they just have a job, and the means to get that job done are left up to them, and that doesn't excuse it, but that, I mean, just as far as how a lot of people think, that's how they think about it, right? Is the job getting done that we want done? Anyway, so back to this Geffen guy. Can't remember what his first name is, but he's, I think, Universal Music guy, and maybe I have it on here. Oh yeah, David Geffen. So he started DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg, right? Who is one of the members of the mega group. I should actually just put on the mega group the list of who's on there. But yeah. And then also what was interesting, right, is this guy he's a Buddhist, right? So this kind of Berkeley Buddhism stuff, right? And he gets some award from the Dalai Lama. Well, who else got an award from the Dalai Lama? This guy. Like, I don't know that a lot of people talk about this guy. This guy's Keith Raniere, and he had this like sex cult where they would basically train up these girls and probably guys to infiltrate powerful people. They'd be like like a hands-on therapist, a sensuality therapist or whatever, but they would, compromise them and get intel on them and stuff. And it was like a global thing, like literally like the president of Mexico, his daughter was part of this sex cult. So like pretty influential in it. And then there's like also just the, if you look up the Dalai Lama, like having this little kid suck on his tongue, like that's that should wake people up. Like, that's weird, right? So let's see. Oh yeah, so he's a trustee for the Brookings Institute, right, which started from grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and they got their power through the mob is and Marxism, all that stuff, started with the same origins, which was the problem of workers' rights, which are important, but it's a union. The difference between a union and a mob is a fine line, and a lot of the kind of unions have just been turned into straight, mob stuff. And anyway, so the Brookings Institute is just basically an extension of the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and they're in the DuPont circle. So it's kind of a grand slam right there as far as like who's been socially engineering our country for a long time. And then there's this other guy, Sabin, which he's a Democrat mega donor. So, as far as trying to, and I think he's in the Epstein Black Book as well. And it was interesting because then here you have Kenneth Durbinstein, a former chief of staff for Ronald Reagan, right? So it's like that's during the Iran-Contra affair. I guess he came in right after as like kind of a cleanup. It's also interesting that apparently he was the first Jewish chief of staff, which has an interesting element to it. Oh yeah. So you like it's crazy to see all these Greek letter societies, and it doesn't seem significant until you look at like who all is part of each one, and then suddenly it's like, that's weird. I have one specific one that harasses me online all the time, and it's really crazy. They're like, oh, which one are they? Alpha Kappa Phi, I think. They're like, oh, Alpha Kappa Phi sends their regards, and it's like to try and deter me from talking about this. But yeah, just looking into this one, right? So it's like here you have the chief of staff connected to Zeta Beta Tau, and you got Doug Morris, the CEO of Universal Music Group. You got Michael Ovitz, who co-founded the Creative Artists Agency and was the CEO of Walt Disney. And there he is with Steven Spielberg, right? So it says, yeah. So he was like a talent agent for Steven Spielberg. He did say that things got taken over. After the sale of AMG, Ovitz became a subject of controversy for remarks made in Vanity Fair interview, wherein he blamed the downfall of AMG upon a cabal led by DreamWorks co-founder David Geffen, which Ovitz described as the Gay Mafia. Okay. Which is interesting because this guy's like part of like the regular mafia, and it's like, yeah, but the Gay Mafia is like beating us, right? And so David Geffen is apparently like a kingpin of this Gay Mafia. And it's just it's just wild. But also, how far do you go before you see like, oh, you got Lucian Grange and Sean Combs, and then Universal Music Group. So Doug Morris is CEO of Universal Music Group, and Seagram bought 80%, and Seagram was run by the Bronfmans, and the Bronfmans were kind of the key people of the mega group. They're all kind of big people. There's Ron Lauder, Edgar Bronfman, and Les Wexner, and probably Steven Spielberg. I mean, they're all. I guess they all brought certain things to the table. It's also just interesting. I stumbled onto kind of all this through literally GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond, which is funny. So to find that Stephen Cohen, who massively shorted GameStop, like is part of this the same group is just hilarious to me, but it actually makes a lot of sense. All right. So now when you actually look at this inclusive capitalism, this is kind of, I guess, the meat of the point I'm trying to make is that okay, I'm going to remember to come back to is that this is what changed everything. So George Soros invested $100 million into Human Rights Watch, which, he like the people he's with, this kind of liberal agenda kind of people were the ones that founded anyway. And it's Europe based. That's also important is Europeans are our friends, but Europe is not America's friend. And, the liberalism there. And that's why, we had the short end of the stick on all the tariffs and everything. And they were trying to start their one world socialists government through Europe. And so he invests $100 million into this NGO, which, is connected to all these kind of news agencies and everything. And they do the Arab Spring. And this is what kind of made everything click. And this was just kind of recently is for a long time, I've tried to, it didn't really make sense why the Arab Spring happened. If you ask AI, they'll be like, oh, well, there was the Muslim Brotherhood. And it's like, yeah, but like, one of the main places of the Arab Spring was Egypt. That's where the Muslim Brotherhood started. I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood actually started because of the Rothschilds, right? The Rothschilds bought the Suez Canal, and the Muslim Brotherhood started to push back against the Rothschilds. So, just kind of an interesting origin. But the Muslim Brotherhood started in Egypt, and President Mubarak was Muslim. So like, he wasn't really like, radical populist sort of Islam like the Muslim Brotherhood was, but like he was Muslim. And, so there wasn't really, I don't know that there was, well, I mean, I guess there was. The problem was not that they were fighting against England and the Rothschilds. It was that, Mubarak had good relationships with the United States and with the Gulf countries, and was just going to use that to, kind of build up, right? And so it's interesting that Obama comes in, the Arab Spring starts, and Obama demands that Mubarak step down. And so even though like the Muslim Brotherhood was, excited that they could put in someone more radical, it wasn't the Arab Spring wasn't their idea. It was George Soros's idea. And, just like all these other liberal movements that always happen, all these secular movements are always like the Young Turks, or, whatever it is, it's always the college students is what they, what they use to do these revolutions. And so with the Arab Spring, that's the main people that were doing it were the young college students or college age students. And because they could pay them off. And then, so they would, it's actually really messed up because they did this in Mexico too, is like, they pay these young naive kids to do things that they have no idea are as dangerous as they really are. It's like, no, like these guys aren't joking. They're gonna like pull out their tanks and like kill you, right? But like George Soros doesn't care, right? Like, the more people that die, the better it is for him, even if they're people on his side, because it makes his propaganda more effective, right? So it's like, oh yeah, run in there, do it, but like he's not going to tell them they're going to die doing it. So anyway, the Arab Spring happens, and there's just like a whole shift in the world power, and it's end up severing the link between the United States, Egypt, and the Gulf countries. And so that's why I think when Trump says "Make America Great Again" instead of "Make America Greater" than it's ever been, which is what I would say if I was running for president, it's that like he came in because of this change that happened, this shift towards this globalist agenda, right here in 2010. And that's kind of the main point. So I think that, for Trump, one, kind of being more of a boomer and just seeing life differently, I don't know if he's sees uh, certain moral things the same as younger generations. But as far as like this heist of taking away our national potential and selling us out to the globalists, like that's the bigger picture for him. And so, when he's looking at the Epstein list, he's like thinking, well, who was one of the main people on the Epstein list? Was Linda Rothschild, right? And what was she doing? She was doing, uh, the inclusive capitalism, right? Which is literally like they use the word capitalism. It's just like the Inflation Reduction Act that's didn't reduce inflation. It was literally the opposite. So Linda Rothschild was doing this globalist agenda, right? And she had quite a few people. So it's kind of interesting. You have, William Lauder, right? So Ron Lauder is really close to Epstein. And I actually didn't check yet because I just made this part. I don't know if he might be on the Epstein list. I think there might have been two Lauders on there. But yeah, so you have him, and so Ron Lauder and Edgar Bronfman were both presidents of the World Jewish Congress. And that's kind of an interesting connection because, like, even though it seems that Trump has this huge Israel focused, well, there's definitely, liberal Jews and conservative Jews, and so he has a conservative Jews focus and is definitely against the liberal Jews. And not saying that's good or bad, or whether we should at all be secondary to a foreign country like Israel, but there is like a distinction, and so it's like if he's going to fix the problem, it's definitely he would definitely prefer to start with the liberal Jews that have their globalist agenda and deal with them rather than the other ones. So I mean, I guess it just is what it is. Like Ronald Lauder didn't really. He is generally Republican, but well, like is like the money he donates, but it's it's more this kind of neoconservative thing, and you can tell because one of his closest friends, if you watch the interview, it was like really creepy, to be honest, really insightful. We talked about Colin Powell, and Colin Powell goes before the Senate and says, "Oh yeah, um, uh, like we need to invade Iraq. They got weapons of mass destruction, right?" So, I mean, he was the one who dragged us in the Iraq War, um, it, um, and yeah, like he grew up as a Shabbos goy, basically helping out, the liberal Jewish kind of mafia, and then goes up in the to become the both do that globalist agenda, which is kind of destabilizing. So the main thing is they'll destabilize these countries, and then they'll put in liberal governments that they can control, and then let's see, and they use government aid money to do that. And hold on one second. So let's see. So he was in charge of the drug trade, and then you have with the whole Iran Contra thing, right? And it was interesting because we watched the video. I don't know, I'd have to find the clip, right? But he basically hands off and he says, "This is the new guy. He's in charge of everything, and this is this Rodrik von Lipy guy." And so, what do you know? He comes from Goldman Sachs as a vice president, and then he works at UBS, right? So it's just crazy how it all keeps coming back to that. And also, as far as this kind of liberal agenda, you can see like, Ron Lauder was the first one to put a Jewish office in the Vatican, and he was happy. There's another article that said he was happy that Pope Benedict, or the Pope before Pope Francis, stepped down, and then you had the first Jesuit Pope, right? So to have the first Jesuit Pope, and then have the World Jewish Congress have an office in the Vatican is not a small thing. So just looking at some of the people that are involved with this, you just kind of start to see some trends. This is not in any special order. I will be organizing this better. But Oxfam keeps coming up. That's like a George Soros, sponsored NGO. You got Google, right? The CEO of Google is still missing ever since his subpoena for the Epstein trial, right? Also, he's a World Economic Forum board of trustees, right? So that's pretty high. And that's like how this whole system works is with trustees, this kind of mafia system. And then let's see. Oh, of course, you got the California state treasurer. It's crazy how you can like guess these things, but like you almost can't make this up. So that out of California government, like our budget is so bad because they're funneling so much money out of it, to under the guise of equity and inclusion and all that stuff, but really it's just like money laundering. And so yeah, to see her be part of it, and then why would I don't know, it's just crazy. The mix between the corporate and the government is just crazy to me. And of course, Boston Consulting Group, literally, this is the global chair, Rich Lesser, and he's a chief advisor of the World Economic Forum, right? And I'm not saying his face looks like a total pedophile, but I'm also saying I'm not saying that. This one's interesting. Sorry to my Ripple friends. I still think there's a Ripple connection, but yeah, it's just there, and interesting. Of course, you got State Street, right? So you got Ronald O. Hanley, and where is he from? McKinsey Consulting. So there's definitely these consulting groups, right? And that was something I had said earlier today was in the stocks. There's a stock called MMTLP, and the reason it got targeted was because their consulting company, not McKinsey, but it's actually an auditing firm, PricewaterhouseCooper. They do all the auditing and consulting for all the oil companies and their carbon credits. And so they had, I guess, MMTLP, which is next bridge hydrocarbon, wasn't, playing along with their ESG money laundering, plan. And so they just, we're just going to bankrupt it. And they have ways of doing that, but they got caught in the act. And so, yeah, and I mean, man, there's so much about PricewaterhouseCooper. But yeah, these consulting companies and these big consulting / auditing firms are a huge problem. Here you have Mark Schneider from Nestle, right? Definitely, yeah. I mean, I could go. Nestle there's a lot of sus things going on. Of course, he's a trustee at the World Economic Forum and has his MBA from Harvard, right? So you start to see these trends coming up. You got Peter Orsag from Lazard, and he was the director of the Office of Management and Budget under Barack Obama, of course. Where he also helped craft the Affordable Care Act. He previously served as director of the Congressional Budget Office. Let's see, I saw Clinton in there, providing economic data and analysis to Congress. His career in public service began under the Clinton administration, where he served as special assistant. Right, so you got the Clintons. The Clinton Foundation is big within all this, but really, like, when things really changed, it was under Obama. He's also a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute. Okay. You got the CEO of Visa, Ryan McInerney, and of course he's from McKinsey, right? Like what's his name? Mitt Romney said he was going to put a whole cabinet in the White House that was just McKinsey Consulting. So yeah, that shows what his agenda was. Even though he was supposed to, when he's running as a Republican, he was really a globalist. Yeah, Michael Maybach from MasterCard. Let's see, what else? Brian, I can't even say that. Let's see, the chairman of the board and the CEO of Bank of America, right? And you'll see all these like business roundtable. Also, I mean, she's the clearinghouse. Like that's where all the crime happens, actually. But the Business Council, he's a chairman of the World Economic Forum, right? Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I mean, each one of these you could do a deep dive on, and you're going to find a lot. Oh man. Okay, so Duncan Wanblad from Anglo American. So does anyone know where that symbol comes from? Like, it's literally like the FBI says that that's the symbol of pedophilia. So kind of an interesting logo. And then when you realize, like, where does this come from? Like, oh, that's literally what the South African company, they just changed their name to be Anglo American. It's they have De Beers. It was a company that, like, Alfred Bate and Cecil Rhodes. So you also see all the Rhodes Scholars. That's it's no offense but sus when you got all the Rhodes Scholars. Yeah, so that's that connection. So it's just so the Rothschilds, and yeah, man, I can't believe that that's still their symbol. That's literally mind blowing. Like after the FBI comes out and says, "Hey, this is the symbol for pedophilia," and they just like keep it. So another person got Rajiv from the Rockefeller Foundation, right? And he's the president of the Rockefeller Foundation, right? Of course, they'd be all about this inclusive capitalism. He had senior leadership roles at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So that's just kind of like a taste of who is part of this. And all these people have a vested interest in, a global system, right? I mean, you think Visa and MasterCard, right? If they did all the payments for the entire world, they would know who buys what, where, they can sell that data. And, that's what they're moving towards, right? If Salesforce is handling all the sales, they know who's buying what and when, and where it's being shipped and all that stuff. So all these fit into, this globalized kind of vision, this liberal vision. And you have Deloitte over here, right? We had already talked about McKinsey and PricewaterhouseCoopers, but of course you have Deloitte. And as far as globalism, like Nestle, right? Like that's very globalized brand. Oh, did I miss a whole thing? Oh, I did. Okay, yeah. So going down here, Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation, right? He was also vice president of the Rockefeller Foundation. And a member of, and this is like one that always comes up, which is the most sus, is the Council on Foreign Relations, which Jeffrey Epstein was a member of, and I think played a very central role. AT&T, man, like as far as like selling data to intelligence agencies and consulting agencies, right? Like AT&T is definitely, them, Verizon, that's where, when we're being spied on, that's who's doing it, is AT&T and Verizon. Yeah. So it's interesting that, he's involved with, Warner Media, you got CNN, right? So it's just so predictable. And then he goes to a Jesuit school, Loyola, right? You got Mark Weinberger, who is actually, what was he part of? EY, which that's one of the other main accounting firms. So yeah, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, EY, and shoot, there's one more. Also, he's part of the World Economic Forum, Johnson & Johnson, and he was part of the Obama infrastructure. He was part of the Trump's first cabinet, so I'm not really sure what's going on there, but yeah. So let's see. So I think this is why so as much as from a Me Too movement, kind of like everyone should be held accountable for the immoral things they do, there's obviously a lot of people that should be prosecuted, but they're on a like a global scale. There was a huge heist of our whole country. And so I think when he says it's a Democrat hoax, one, it's just interesting that most of the people on the Epstein list want Trump dead, which is just really weird. So you'd think, like, why would they all be working together, but all be working together to try and kill Trump. Like, that's just super weird if like he was just one of them. And also on that list, most of them are Democrat mega donors. So why? It's just like there's so much about it that doesn't really make sense, unless you just see that there's like a bigger picture, and that I guess they know, the Democrats know that most people aren't going to dig in and do their own research. And so they can just say, hey, look, here's a picture with this guy that we've, told you is the worst. We're not going to tell you anything about him other than he trafficked people and that he's friends with Trump. And, it's, and I'm not saying I'm not saying I approve of a lot of that stuff there, but like when you really dig in, it's like there, as much as we say that Trump changed a lot in the first, 100 days of his presidency, like he was just changing so many things. I think the difference was he was being transparent about it, and that the whole Obama presidency, things were changing just as fast or faster, but in the wrong direction. They were changing towards a globalist direction. And so I am I don't know. I'm kind of just doing this stream just to put this out there. Like, it's not, I'm planning on doing something more polished, but just to be able to bring up some names which are, to get people thinking, right? Right. Like, here's Michael Bloomberg from the Epstein book, Little Black Book, right? He's part of 3 different Greek letter societies, right? Like, that's crazy. And also like the different connections to magic. Anyway, that's like a whole different, I don't know. I mean, I could, I'm actually just not even sure which thread to follow down as far as like doing a polished video. Cause for me, it's like all really interesting. I mean, the magic connection is really, really interesting. Like Louis B. Mayer making a series with Harry Houdini, who, and having, consulting Alister Cwley on it. Like, that's just crazy to me. And who funded those movies? Well, you have William Randolph Hearst. Like, that's, he invented yellow journalism, the idea of propaganda and whatnot. And what else we got here? His wife. Oh, okay. So I told some people that I was going to do a stream like a month or 2 ago, and I never did because I didn't I didn't get to it. And it was because I kept going down so many rabbit holes. I found a piece of information, and then I couldn't find it again. And so I was like, well, I can't do it, because I was like, everything kind of hinged on it. But I just found this recently, and so it brought up this whole so you got Louis B. Mayer, who people are like, oh, it's like the Jewish mafia, right, of Hollywood. But he's being funded by William Randolph Hearst, right? And his wife is part of Baha'i faith, or was part of Baha'i faith. And that's like super interesting. Because like, so Baha'i faith started in Iran, and a lot of this research started just because I've been trying to figure out what's going on in Iran, and I don't want to see people dying, and why didn't Iran help? Like, why would Iran attack Israel after Gaza is decimated, right? Like, that's kind of weird. Like, if Gaza was getting weapons from Iran, why didn't Iran like come in and back them up before like everything's gone, right? Like, that just really wouldn't it just doesn't make sense for a lot of things. But I also didn't realize that Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're Sunni Islam, and Iran's Shia Islam, and so it was kind of, I don't know. I don't know what all is going on there, because like if it's like, oh, thanks for all the negative PR against Iran or against Israel, but like we weren't ever going to help you. We just wanted you to spark off this conflict. I'm not really sure. But so Baha'i faith started in Iran, and their main kind of tenet was that you didn't need a centralized government or a centralized religion anymore. That was like their main sort of thing. And it's like, well, it's kind of convenient if like this is during the time when you got the Ottoman Empire is what everyone's conspiring to take down, and it's run by Islam. And so then like this guy shows up, and so they're obviously persecuted, and everyone, they're all, like always suspected of being part of this political agenda. And then it's just like, so where does like their headquarters end up being? In Israel. So how is it that like an organic grassroots religious movement in Iran back in the 1800s, how does that end up like having its capital in Israel? And what's even funnier is, so Baha'i faith was founded 1 year after B'nai B'rith was founded. So it's like B'nai B'rith's founded as far as like an intelligence agency, and they're like, hey, we'll make up this religion. We'll combine a bunch of like religions and make it like a universalist thing, and try to like make it happen in Iran. And it didn't happen. Just a lot of people died. So it's just kind of crazy. Yeah. So I'm kind of just skipping around because whoa, I didn't know one of the founding members of B'nai B'rith was a Kissinger. That makes sense. Okay. So another thing that was interesting is B'nai B'rith started, one of their first things they did was orphanages. And one of the first orphanages they did was in was it Ohio? Yeah, Ohio. So it's like, that's where Boys Town was, where they had like, it was a Catholic one where boys were being abused. And yeah, so anyway, it's also interesting that this one is like right around this time of these orphanages is like when they have these orphan trains where they were taking all these immigrant children and basically just shipping them out west for whoever. And a lot of them just were missing. Like they just had no idea where they went. It was like, hey, who wants children? And they just ship them out. So odds of them being, totally enslaved or sexually abused is super high, right? Because, you can look at the orphan trains, like there's lots of things written about them. And, about 200,000 children, most of them, like, they don't know where they even ended up. And some they even shipped it to Canada, which is super weird, right? There's Ghislaine Maxwell at Disney, right? That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But then there's Rupert Murdoch, not just with Ghislaine Maxwell, but with Robert Maxwell, right? So guess I'll just skip around this one real quick, just to the American Humanist Association. That's, man, this is like, because this whole movement is a liberal movement, and that is where it comes from, is that they wanted to get rid of this central religious authority, right? So it's good without a God, right? And when you start to look at who was like Albert Ellis, right? Just look into Albert Ellis if you don't know who that is, and the Ellis Institute. And I don't know. There's just oh my gosh, it's just so bad. You got Paul Krasner, right, who was doing the hippie movement, right, and who was the whole CIA, MK Ultra stuff, is anyway. So it's just like when you start connecting people, and this program's free, by the way. It's called Obsidian. You can just download it. It's free for personal use. DuPont Greenwald. Yeah. Let's see. I gotta. Oh, yeah. So this one, Theta Chi, which connected a lot of people together, right? This Owen Chamberlain guy. So you got Samuel de Piazza, which there's actually like a similar name. I don't know if they're related. That's like a high up like Scientologist guy, probably related. Dude, he was chairman of Warner Brothers, PwC, right? And AT&T. And what do you know? PwC audits AT&T. And you have another guy from the same group, right? Randall Tobias, right? He was Agency for International Development and AIDS coordinator. Oh man, that's another whole rabbit hole. But anyway, he was on the board of Chemical Bank, which got bought out by JP Morgan Bank. And what do you know? PwC also audits them. And then all the oil companies. Oh yeah, I followed it. And of course, Steven Spielberg is part of it. He's also, KBE, so he's a Royal Society guy. Another person was, Chicago Stock Exchange, president. Who was this? Oh, Miller Brewing Company, right? Which I think, if I'm remembering right, they ended up taking over, or they're out of South Africa, so they're part of that all that South Africa stuff. Yeah. I just had a thought, but I forgot what. Yeah. Wonder who all is gonna. Oh yeah, Theosophy, right? So this was the original document, and all those like boxes are. So this all started because I was trying to find the B'nai B'rith thing, the connection. And they had started several different things, but the one that really took off was Theosophy. And oh man, I definitely got to organize my thoughts on that. But the Silk Road is just really like, to understand like all of history is like literally just surrounds the trade on the Silk Road. Like all the religions that started were had to do Silk Road. Even like Manichaeism, right? Like that was like the first like first universalist. But it was one that spread easily, and I'm not sure that was like that, because that was like 200 AD, right? So that was when the first, the Jewish Talmud that they use right now was written in that time. And the person who started Manichaeism was was a messianic Jewish, that also believed in Jesus. Kind of just let's see. What would be maybe I should save this for another day, because it's one, there's like a lot going on, like talking about like just this picture, right? You have Martin Luther King, and then you have Gandhi, right? Why is that specific? Like, what do they have to do with, like, the Rockefellers? Which also shows, like, the Rockefellers really don't care. Like, when they're doing these liberal movements, they don't care if the person that's working for them just gets killed. Like, it actually makes it better for them. So that's why you shouldn't be on their side, because they will definitely leave you out to get killed. Also, dude, for some reason, the world fairs, there was, I do not know. Yeah, as far as the globalist agenda, like, literally progresses with these world fairs, and it's weird stuff happens at them. Like, I keep stumbling back into them being important. Yeah, and Martin Luther King's wife was part of the women's Freemasonry, the Order of the Rising Star, or something like that. Crotona. Yeah, the history of magic, and I mean, I think that the history of magic was like the history of, like, propaganda, like who could trick people into doing stuff. The rise of the central banks, and both the Rothschilds, but also the Sassoon family. Yeah, David Sassoon, and they married into the Rothschild family, of course. And these coups, man, like the history of these coups is just like even just this guy, right? Nasser al-Din Shah Kahar or whatever. Basically, so in Iran at this point, I don't know they had, like, really strong, like, central government. This is like mid to late 1800s, and I mean, there's, like, different tribes and whatnot, and they had, anyway, they basically, the Rothschilds just, like, propped up this leader guy to act like and then made deals with him as if, like, it was, like, valid for the whole country. And of course, he was a knight of the Order of the Garter, right? Anyway, they said they were going to build a railroad, and then they actually never did. So they put in a central bank and said they were going to build a railroad, and just didn't do it. Yeah, the history of the Bank of India. Yeah, I do want to. I did, like, part of the reason I wanted to do a stream before was, this is the guy that Israel's hoping they can place in Iran as the leader. It's just like, Israel has had good ties with Iran before, but in each one of those cases, Iran was the one being nice to Israel and letting them be part of their empire, instead of the opposite. And it worked out good, right? Like, I mean, we're talking all the way like 500 BC. They were subjected to the Assyrian Empire, and Iran. The Persians beat the Assyrians, and then basically just helped out the Jews. So that's happened like twice, but it like I said, it was that way. It was Persia, Iran helping Israel, not yeah. I'm not sure if Israel would return the favor in the same style as Iran did it before. And I'm not saying I promote the way Iran is doing things right now. I don't know. But yeah, it definitely seemed like a leap for them to assume they could put this guy in. Yeah, he's like definitely like a total CIA shill. Like, it's like not like you just read his Wikipedia page. Pavlovy had CIA funding for several years in the 80s, but it ended after the Iran-Contra scandal, right? So it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I think Iran for good reason has a lot of trust issues when it comes to the United States and Israel. Like, if people don't know what happened in Iran-Contra, I think it's important that they do. Is so basically the United States and Israel wanted Iraq and Iran and for their oil. And so what their plan was is they wanted to get Iran and Iraq to fight each other and weaken each other, and then they would come in and then just take both of them over, right? So the United States was, helping out Iraq secretly and giving them weapons and stuff, but and we were also secretly giving Iran weapons through Israel. So we give weapons to Israel, and Israel would give weapons to Iran. And yeah, I mean both. So I think that both sides were kind of like they were like, this seems a little sus. Like, I don't know, like, but I think it was like 500,000 people died in total. And it worked because then the United States took over Iraq, but they ended up having to like come back later and just say, "Oh, there's weapons of mass destruction." But yeah, it's super messed up. Like, that's just not. I don't know. There has to be a better way to do it than just like tell someone. I don't know, push someone into a war so that both sides like weaken each other, and then you just take both over. I don't know. It's just kind of messed up. It just creates trust issues, and it's like, how can you ever really have peace after that? Because they know that you're willing to literally kill them to get what you want. So you then, like, how are you ever supposed to legitimately rule, right? And it's just going to end in like a bloody revolution, because then you put like some freaking retarded puppet. Like, come on, if you're going to put a puppet, don't put this retard. Like, just look at, he just looks dumb. It's like, bless his heart, no offense to him, but like, no one wants that. And that's just going to lead to a bloody revolution later, right? So I think hopefully, like, our best game plan is that other countries at least know we don't have a retarded short-term view mentality. Like, if they know we at least have a smart long-term view, we could still have our own self-interest. But when they think like, wow, they're retarded and just fixated on short-term thinking, like, they're not, like, no one's gonna be willing to do business with that. Yeah. So anyway, I could go on. I need to organize a lot of this. I'm just kind of skirting around to see if anything stands out as far as would be interesting to touch on. It also, like, the problem spans like thousands of years, and so you can kind of go back however far to kind of get more context. This guy, dude, if you guys don't know who this guy is, Havelock Ellis. Wow, what a weird little pervert guy, right? Like, that's, yeah, definitely. I started reading one of his books. I'm just like, wow, you're a disgusting little human. Um, um, oh man. Um, let's see what else is interesting, just to give a little preview for. Oh, the Catham House. The Catham House is, I'm not English, so I have a little bit of English blood, but I don't really know what goes on in England. But supposedly this is the equivalent of the Council on Foreign Relations, but for England. And a lot of sus stuff happens there. Um, um, oh, yeah, History of Boy Scouts. Yeah, it's actually pretty sus. Oh, the Mercers. Okay. I mean, kind of that, yeah. This one's one I definitely want to flush out because it's very interesting as far as like the beginning of just like modern business. This is like in the end of the 1300s. So this was things started to really shift around in this time period as far as like ships being able to actually sail around the world effectively. And oh man, this guy, John D. So he was like this kind of culture of these like esoteric sort of like spies um, that would like infiltrate, and then to find that like Ronald Reagan's wife was like consulting an astrologer. Like what? Like like how is that not like weird to people, right? Like um I mean, I feel like what a president does should be like transparent and like make sense to people. Like even if they said like, "Oh, like I was inspired, from God to do this or whatever, like I prayed," it still should make sense. Like it shouldn't just be like, "Oh, like the stars line up and we're gonna do this." Like that's retarded. Um yeah. So anyway, like this actually connects into yeah, there is this society that this really weird occult society that has been going forever. I mean, this is probably branch off of the, even before the Manichaeans, but the Manichaeans, like, it's interesting because the main Kabbalistic sort of text is the Zohar, which supposedly was written in like the 1300s. And they, in that book, they're saying, oh, but like we're really quoting someone from like 300 AD or something. And I thought that was just kind of a cop out, like saying like, oh yeah, this is a really old idea. But then when I started looking into Manichaeism, which started in 200 AD, and I'm like, well, it's like literally like the exact same thing, right? That there's these vessels that hold light, and there's this corruption of like the light, and it's like yeah, they use slightly different language, but the same thing is that there's something of our human nature and the way we're this light that comes in, like that we're messing with it. And I don't know, a lot more to that, but yeah, so it's like that, and then going deeper where those roots even came from, as far as like, the connections to Egypt and whatnot, like it kind of all makes sense. Um, but it's just weird how it turns into these like weird kind of like mysterious, like magician spies, sexual operatives, like you have even in Russia, you had, oh shoot, the one from Anastasia. I can't remember what the name was, but um, Rasputin, right? Rasputin was part of this same line of this just weird kind of magic, but like, they were part of this group that was this hedonistic sort of, I don't know if blackmail ring, but it's just, man, there's so much. I don't even know. Like, it's like been frustrating to me that it's like it makes sense to me now, but like to explain it, you have to explain all of it. Otherwise, it seems like it doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, oh, that's a huge leap in logic. But it's like when you put all the pieces together, it's like, oh no, like there's literally a continuous line, and you can trace it pretty well. I mean, obviously, a lot of the important things that happen in life either happen behind closed doors or aren't, literally video recorded, right? So, you do have to put some, fill in some gaps, but um, uh, yeah, there's a lot that you can see, Jacob Frank and the Sabbateans, and it's not like, you know, there's a lot there, and I will be exploring it. It's just it's like hard because I feel like the more modern stuff is more relevant, but then it's like, but the modern stuff doesn't really make sense without like the history. And then it's like, well, you just have to keep going back. Like, why is it important that Sigmund Freud was Jewish, but his parents were Moravian? Like, what is that? Well, like Moravians where, Freemasonry came from, right? Which was like their whole goal was to, get rid of the Catholic Church, right? So you had these Moravians were some of the first Protestants, and like who was it that, so they basically, it was, the Freemasonry was a structure for everyone that hated the Catholic Church. It's just it's just kind of mind-blowing. So yeah, and so for them to have this sort of agenda where it's like, oh, at your core is there's not some like light of Christ or some kind of soul. It's like some Freudian nightmare where you have this fantasy to sleep with your mom or something, right? Like, so I don't know. I mean, I mean, even like, the difference, why the conflict with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung happened, right? Which was interesting, right? The Vienna psychoanalytical society, right? Like they were all like rabbis except for Carl Jung. And then what do you know? He gets kicked out. That's why they called psychoanalysis was the Jewish science. Um, let's see. Um, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just gonna. Hey, what's up, PP? Yeah, this is not it's not Bed Bath or GameStop related. Actually, I mean, it really does keep coming back to it though, which is literally nuts. Because this is the history of the liberal agenda versus, the conservative agenda. And, that's ultimately why Michelle. Like, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like been helpful. I mean, a little bit like, so a lot of it's been like too late figuring it out. Like if I would have figured out a lot of this sooner, I would have like made vastly different choices, because it's like to understand why, like my thoughts on how things were going to play out when I made a lot of money last year on GameStop. Like I should have sold. I definitely should have sold. And because like the things just weren't in place that I thought were going to happen. Like you had to think like what's going to happen. And for right now, actually, since you're here, PP, for you, um, yeah, it's also, I think the viewers are on X, at least it's just saying who's at least seen like 5 seconds of my show. So I don't think I have that many live viewers. I don't know how many I actually have in live, but I can see some people like Alpha State's here. So what's up? But as far as like the big picture, I think the problem right now is Russia and Ukraine, right? So, you have the globalists, which want Ukraine for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, that's like their capital of their sex trafficking, that in Thailand. So, that's, well, these weirdos want that place. But the thing is that for the stock market, like Bed Bath and Beyond, you can't have, there's gonna be a huge wealth transfer, and that's going to strain the whole global financial system. And a lot of people don't want to pay up, right? I mean, a lot of people are in really, really deep. Like the short positions are pretty concentrated. Like, and this could like substantially hurt the entire country of Austria. And one, I mean, they deserve it. Well, at least the people that did the deed deserve it. I mean, it sucks that it's going to affect a lot of them. I don't know how they're going to. I mean, that's the hard part, is you have like a handful of people that they let be into leadership, but hey, we let freaking Obama be into leadership. So like, do we deserve it? Like, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I think Trump is going to get rid of the IRS. So I think that that they can't, because like the dominoes will start falling, right? So a lot of the counterfeit shares for Bed Bath and Beyond are in Austria, right? And a lot of them are in, the London Stock Exchange, and they're all over, right? And so all these people would use the excuse like, well, we can't let this all happen right now because we're in a world war. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it doesn't feel like we're in a world war, but like, I mean, we don't. I mean, life has continued on during all wars. I mean, it's not that everything stops for other wars, right? Like, I mean, the United States sent nuclear armed submarines to Russia, right? So like, you can't say, oh, we're sending nuclear armed submarines to Russia. That was last week. And then like, oh, but we're not in a world war. It's like, yeah, like those two things don't go together. So, but how soon will that be solved? Well, Trump said he could have done it on day one, and I think he could have. But Europe wanted to keep the war going for a lot of reasons, because like it helps. I don't know. They just needed the excuse to be at war. Also, I don't know. I don't know what their end goal was, what Europe's end goal was. I mean, maybe it was to kill Trump and stop this movement, because they're the ones that have been in control. That's why like like they're doing, like, it's such a double standard, not only with the tariffs, but like even they can use fake shares, right? So they can counterfeit our shares. We can't counterfeit their shares. Like, it's just a really weird thing. Like, so they're injecting all these counterfeit shares into our system, and it's just it's insane. So we've been getting the short end of the stick of our relationship with Europe, especially with London. But anyway, so with this negotiation with Russia, that was one problem. But the other one is I think they're waiting to see what happened between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And that's the thing is that Russia, has had control in that region for a long time, but the United States has been building up a good relationship with Turkey. So they cut off the natural gas from Russia to Europe, and now they're shipping it in from Azerbaijan all the way through Turkey and then all the way into Europe. And so that's an existential threat for Russia. But what can they do about that? It's not they can start launching nukes or anything. So they kind of just have to end up making a deal and be friends. And now at least they do have a bargaining chip. They can say, okay, well, let's make a deal over the raw or the rare earth minerals that are in part of that region. And so I think that Trump and Putin will be able to do a deal for Russia literally this Friday. And so I think that will eliminate any excuse for the Bed Bath and Beyond thing to stay halted. And so I'm really optimistic. So the treaty that and I kind of like the model. Like, this is something that this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I, as much as I like everyone having their own sovereignty, the only person I trust to oversee that would be America, and because I have at least some influence to help us be more honest. And even though America has a really bad track record, I think we're headed in the right direction. Like the Trump passageway between Azerbaijan, that region, that kind of disputed region, I don't know. I mean, that just really seems like a better solution. It's like, hey, look, we're going to use the power of American, our military, that we're going to say that this is a safe zone, and whoever needs to pass through here can pass through here. And we're guaranteeing it. And that's cool, right? As long as we're not putting up toll booths and kind of trying to extract wealth. It's no, look, we want stability because we want the whole world to be more productive. That sounds great, So in that sense, I wish that, the US would have done that in Palestine and, and Israel, is that just step in to be the overseer and be all right, guys, we're not going to kill each other. We're just going to all chill out, and we're going to create a framework, and we're going to enforce it. Right. Because you can't have Israel has a conflict of interest. So when they handle it, they're just, I just accidentally killed a bunch of people that were getting aid, or whatever. It's I just think that the United States should have stepped in a long time ago. But it's also just kind of hard because it's super messy, right? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's sad. And yeah. Yeah, actually, I don't know. But I am optimistic about Trump's way of doing. I think it's too difficult to talk about Palestine and Israel, even though it's super important, just because it's not a problem that started overnight, right? And I mean, yeah, it's and I don't really know anyone that has any productive conversations about it in general. So it's most people are just kind of, really one-sided. One side says from the river to the sea. The other one says just kill all the babies. I don't think either one of those are really productive. The only viable solution I could have seen was, hey, someone needs to step in and tell everyone to chill out and force them to chill out. But yeah. Anyway, I'm very optimistic about what's happening. I mean, other than that specific situation, which it's hard to ignore that because it's really ugly. Um, but I think that people are starting to see that America has changed, and when you start looking at when you really like, it's interesting because a lot of people made fun of. I think it was Dan Bongino that he said, "Oh, like you know, there's some country in the Middle East, is like, can't remember what it was. Oh, it was the one that was controlling Epstein, and like everyone's like, obviously it was Israel, and it's like, it kind of isn't though. I'm not saying that Israel is not a part of it, but it was, there's something called the Safari Club, and it's actually one I've been meaning to do, right, is what is the Safari Club, right? Um, and this is like when the Iran Contra affair was going on, basically, I don't know, just all the intelligence agencies. I'm not sure how they structured their system, as far as what they were doing, but they had to change the game when the Iran Contra affair got exposed. And so they started this organization, which technically was out of Egypt. Um, and but the main player was Adnan Khashoggi, who's from Saudi Arabia, right? Um, and so it's just really complicated because like the United States had a good relationship with Saudi Arabia, but also like our intelligence agency rogue like leaders had a good relationship with Saudi Arabia, and they weren't necessarily the same, but like everyone kind of had to coexist with each other until Trump, right? And that's like the one part that like a lot of people don't understand is like, I remember when Jamal Khashoggi got killed or whatever, and it's like, oh, this poor journalist, and it was like, wait, this poor journalist got like $100 million from Jeff Bezos. Like, that's kind of weird. Like, I'm a journalist, who's going to pay me 100 million? Like, right? Like, what made him worth 100 million? Like, same kind of question on what makes Barry Weiss, worth $250 million, right? Like, what could she be doing that would be worth that much? It's because they're in with these intelligence agencies, and so Anand Khashoggi was the main kind of arms trafficker, and that's like who Jeffrey Epstein was working with, and that's why there was so much money. Is it's like, that's, I mean, sex trafficking is one, and obviously blackmail is important and stuff, but guns are the powerful thing, and that's what people are really really paying for, guns and um I guess influence deals. um so anyway, like, it's just like to say, like, Israel was obviously part of the Safari Club, and I really think everyone should just read this Wikipedia page at least. Is Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and France, right? um, Maintain informal connections with the United States, South Africa, Rhodesia, and Israel. So, so it's like we had to be more secret about it because we got like the Iran Contra affair got exposed. But it's all these countries, right? Is the Israel intelligence, are they like the most effective at what they're doing? And for various reasons, like, yeah. And but it's like to say it's just them is like kind of missing the point, right? The point is like, how do you keep these people in line, right? How do you keep these agents where you have your interests? Like, I know someone that worked, I overheard meetings of when they were um working for an embassy, and the, the embassy person is like, as long as it's in America's interests, Well, what does that mean? Like, just blanketly, like, if it's in our interests, like, cool, like, yeah, like, that's so anyway, they were just like, um, they just have these blank checks, like, these to do whatever, however they wanna get it done, and, so it's not a coincidence that Trump, like, got all those papers and was trying to figure out where are all these agents overseas, because when they're overseas, they don't have to obey any sort of like laws. Like they could do whatever they want. They could just kill people, right? And so it's just like this really, one guy that was attacking Ian Carroll, it was like really interesting because like, you look in like he's like, oh yeah, like I was a private contractor in the Middle East. I'm Israeli, but I was working as a private contractor for, the CIA or whatever. And it's like, which means he could do anything he wanted, right? And it wouldn't get the United States in trouble. So that makes him a really valuable asset because, you know, he can do the dirty work. And I think the problem is like, I don't know, like we got to figure out a way to not do things so dirty. And that's why it just seems like Trump's like, instead of having these intelligence agents doing rogue, crazy shiz, let's just make deals, be transparent. And yeah, I'm going to be tough on the deal, but like, it's like, I'm going to get the upper hand on the deal, but it's still going to be a deal that benefits everyone. It's just going to benefit America more than everyone else. But like, you know, the way things were before, it's like, no, we're going to come in and we're just going to just cause absolute chaos and just kill. Like it just, I mean, the amount of just deaths that's just unneeded. It's like, but it didn't matter. There wasn't anyone measuring metrics of like, how did you get the job? Like, what did the ends justify the means? It's like how many people do you have to kill to do it? Like, oh, I killed 50. Like, okay, well, could you have done the same job by only killing 5? Like, probably, but who cares? Like it's just like that's the mentality. And that's just not good for anyone. I don't know. Now that we have technology, I feel like there's just not really a need to do things the way they've been done before. So, I wasn't necessarily planning on going into this. One, because I mean, as you can tell, there's just so many things, and I'm not. But just like the connection between, you got the Khashoggis and then the Bin Laden family, like Osama bin Laden, right? And then the Carlyle group, right? Who part of the Carlyle group is a guy, Sharif bin Laden, right? So how is it that like this Carlyle group, which is where Jerome Powell comes from, is connected to Osama bin Laden, right? So, and then it's like, actually, let's see. Do I still even have it up? Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't going to talk about this, but so this is the most insane thing, right? Like if there's one thing that's going to make someone wake up, like one thing where it's like, look, just read this and like tell me this isn't absolutely terrifying. So there's this guy, Alvin Bernard, Buzzy Krongard. Okay. He was the executive director of the Central Intelligence Agency. He was appointed on March 16th, 2001. Okay, just that's kind of weird, right? Let's see. The executive director is the third ranking position within the CIA. So that's pretty high. Third ranking, that's pretty high. And the incumbent functions essentially as the chief operating officer of the agency. For 3 years prior, Krongard had served as the counselor to the director of Central Intelligence. Okay. Longtime consultant to DCIs. Krongard joined the agency full-time in February 1998, following a 29-year business career. During his private sector career, he served as chief executive officer and chairman of the board for Alex Brown and Sons. Okay. So I guess I'll just click that. The nation's oldest investment banking firm. Okay. So that raised some eyebrows. And the vice chairman of the board of the Bankers Trust. Okay, so we'll just skip over this just because. So it was bought out by Deutsche Bank, and who was, and this was in 1999. So right before. So at this point, he worked for the company that now is Deutsche Bank, and who has their money in Deutsche Bank at this point? Jeffrey Epstein. So just think about that. Okay, so this guy works for this company that holds Jeffrey Epstein's money. All right, we're just play lacrosse. That's us. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. Krongard resigned from the CIA shortly after arrival. Blah blah. While at CIA, he was the connection between Eric Prince of Blackwater Security Consulting and the CIA. Okay. So one, all these things like Blackwater, Black Cube, all these things are definitely sus. His brother was working for it at the time, and he like lied about it, but then, whatever. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Wow. So in 2004, Krongard married Cheryl Gordon, at the time a senior executive for Apollo Global Management. So half of the money that Jeffrey Epstein made was from Leon Black at Apollo Global Management. Is that kind of weird, right? So controversies. Okay. Krongard's name was brought up in conjunction with investigations into suspected 9/11 related insider trading because of timely Wall Street trades made through the investment bank he used to head, Alex Brown. The 9/11 Commission report stated a single U.S.-based institutional investor with no conceivable ties to Al Qaeda. Yeah, no conceivable ties to Al Qaeda, purchased 95% of American airline puts. When? September 6th, 2001. Okay, like if this doesn't like make people ask some questions, like I literally have no idea what would. Like, think about that. You have the third highest person at the CIA who buys 95% of the available puts on, like 5 days before 9/11 on the airline. And why is it that we don't know more about this? Like, why is this, does it not say like, oh, and this guy is like in jail or got executed, right? No, like he's living his best life after this. Like, he's marrying into Apollo Global Management after this. Like, what the heck is going on? Yeah, so I just people need to know this. Like I remember hearing, they're like, I thought that was just like a conspiracy thing. Like, no, literally the 9/11 Commission report said that this guy, the third highest person at the CIA, bought all these puts, millions of dollars, like 95% of the puts, right? I mean, that probably would be a lot. And I think he bought 115 shares or something. So I don't know if he. Oh, it was on 6 on the 10th. That's an interesting move. Maybe that was to. Or maybe anyway. Who knows what else is going on? But I mean, those puts, he probably made millions and millions of dollars, right? And so it's just interesting for Apollo to be involved and Deutsche Bank to be involved, which is where they did the tokenized securities for GameStop, right? So it all comes back to that, which is what I actually planned on starting this was how did Epstein make his money, right? So Epstein made his money. I definitely meant to do this from the beginning. Epstein made his money from two sources. One was Les Wexner, and the other one was Leon Black. And something I've noticed as I've been going through this, doesn't sound weird, but like when someone doesn't have their picture, but they have like a long bio, like, and it's like I've been finding all these people that like that are involved with Epstein and they just don't have their picture. It's just fascinating. I don't know if it means like they've been taken care of or something, but anyway, so what did he do for them? Or one, I mean, you see the Greekletter societies, right? And then on here you see United Brands, which if you've gone down any like CIA rabbit holes, like that was one of like the big like the coups that they used these banana companies. They did like a whole coup in a country just for this banana company, or through this banana company. And they also got Harvard, right? So what did he do for these two people? Like, so half of his money came from both of these people. Of his total net worth was like almost $500 million or whatever, and 150 came from Leon Black, and then the rest came from Les Wexner. And so what did he do? Well, he was doing tax avoidance consulting for them. How do you avoid taxes? Well, you can, if you sell a stock short, basically you borrow the stock, which makes it a loan, and loans have certain tax kind of attributes. Then you sell this borrowed share short into the market, and you get the cash. Well, if that company then goes bankrupt, you don't have to pay taxes until you buy that share back to close your short position. And if the company goes bankrupt, then that share always trades at, a fraction of a penny. And so you can just let it trade forever. So you can use 99.999% of your money and just not worry about it. And they could do this with billions of dollars, right? Just with Washington Mutual Bank, they did $50 billion worth of shorts. And you can see them piling in before there was any sort of news saying that there was any sort of problem with the bank. And so Jeffrey Epstein was connected to all these powerful people, and they would just basically pick a sacrificial company to do like a Holocaust and, or a scapegoat. And so they would load this scapegoat company like Washington Mutual up with all the bad assets. They would trade all the good assets to, their friends at JP Morgan or Citibank or wherever. And then they basically, bankrupt the company. And so now all these people, geez, if I was in charge of the FBI, I'd just go through and say like, okay, well, who has all these short positions for all these companies that they've never closed their short position? Like, who has a short position still on Washington Mutual Bank? And then you would know that those are the big time criminals. And that's just shorts that existed like in the United States. Like there's ways to do the same thing outside the country as well. But yeah, so this is why Jeffrey Epstein has to do with GameStop and Bed Bath & Beyond, is because I guarantee, like when you look at who all they're connected to, so there was a major heist, like 2017-ish, actually probably 2014. Yeah, probably started in 2014, where the beginning of the pump and then the dump, where they had decided that they were going to basically the companies that the intelligence agencies of, and the consulting firms and everything they were going to use to, take over the world were like Walmart, Target, and Amazon. Those are the ones that were scalable and they could, expand them. And then they were just going to cannibalize all the brick and mortar companies. And so they picked, they conveniently had this ETF, XRT, that was full of just these brick and mortar companies. And so they're like, okay, well, we can short like some of the stocks within that ETF. Meanwhile, we keep making more shares and we'll pump Victoria's Secret, and then we'll dump, and then we'll short GameStop and Bed Bath. And so they just, increase the short interest, and it benefits them, right? It literally benefits Les Wexner when Victoria's Secret stock, when they short, well, actually, I guess not, well, like all the, like, they end up basically filling all these ETF units with like cash in lieu of GameStop, cash in lieu of Bed Bath, and then they'll buy a real share of Victoria's Secret. So Victoria's Secret is a lot higher multiple than it should be for that reason. Yeah, so that was their plan. And so I'm sure that all these people involved with Les Wexner and Epstein are short GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond, like really short. It was kind of like a go all in. And that was something that Epstein actually said to, he said to RFK Jr. was, he's like, oh, I only do trades when I have insider information. And it's like, yeah, like all the people, right? He's not the one necessarily calling the shot. It'd be someone like, was the guy that Wheel, I think is just like the guy that was like the Citibank CEO that was like the mentor for Jamie Dimon. Can't remember what his name is. But, people like that are the ones like, okay, yeah, we're going to kill this company. And, but you need people like Larry Fink to vote people onto the board. So they abuse all their proxy voting, at BlackRock. And then also Apollo Global Management uses their proxy voting to put on people like Mark Triton. And Mark Triton worked at Nordstrom's, right? Who used the modeling agency of Jeffrey Epstein, right? So it's not like, I don't know. Like the connections are there. So it's taken me a while to collect all of them and present all of them, but they're all there. Like, it's not like these like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. It's literally like, like hopefully, Kash Patel like just lays it all out there and like, oh yeah, here are the short positions. We have them. And it's like, knew it. Right. So yeah, that's why this has to do with GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond. It really is a central part. Just the problem is how you go about investigating Jeffrey Epstein and what he was doing. You could he is the elephant in the room, and where do you start dealing with the elephant? Right, the side you pick to start on it matters. And all this comes back to that the main problem started in 2010. So these people decided to short Donald Trump's company in 2004 into the ground. Trump doesn't say that. He doesn't say, maybe because it's part of the deal. Maybe he's like, oh, like, I'm not going to let them know that this is my plan, is like, I'm going to bring this ticker back and I'm going to make them regret it. Right. Like maybe he's like, oh, we had a dispute over a property we were buying, and, or, whatever else. And it's like, no, like, they decided to short his company into the ground. They also decided to short Overstock into the ground. And the same year, 2004. So Jeffrey Epstein so Trump kicks out Jeffrey Epstein in like 2008, and this takeover happens in 2010. So in my opinion, this was the biggest part of the problem, was the heist of America, right? No one should get raped because that's horrible, but this is raping an entire country. So, actually an entire planet. So it should be dealt with first, in my opinion. And that just switched, right? Like that, you can see one of the houses that he owned was from Linda Rothschild. crap, I don't have my phone. Otherwise, I'd ask Rock. But yeah. So the connection with him and Linda Rothschild was the important one, and so um, and yeah, so it all comes back to this inclusive capitalism thing, which was the problem. But I'm excited for a lot of reasons. I think that this whole structure is, they're taking out all the middlemen that mess it up, and they're making blockchain be law, right? So now you can't have regulators, being paid off. I mean, I guess you still can, but like to a certain degree, when it's like things are blockchain, it's like there's a lot less room for corruption to step in. And and I think people, there were people that were just opportunistic, and I think that it's better to have them capitulate and join the good side rather than just like hang them, as much as like it would. Some people probably should be hanged. um I guess the capitulation is, at least for right now, is a lot better. um and But yeah, so like the blockchain is going to get all these middlemen that are where all the corruption is happening out of the way. And also just the America First movement, where it's like, if we focus on making our country as productive as possible, then we don't have to be doing coups around the world. I mean, we shouldn't have been doing that anyway. I mean, I think there's some I guess it's kind of hard because, like, if we didn't, I mean, I don't like the mentality of, if we didn't do it, someone else would, because that's pretty messed up. But the reality is, if we didn't do it, someone else would have. And that would have made things really hard, right? Because let's say that Russia did go in and, do coups all around the world. Um, and then all of a sudden, if it was just us, right? Like, that would be hard and not fun. So, you know, I don't like our past. I don't I We can't go in a time machine and fix it. We can't admit that, or that we should acknowledge that we totally messed up and we should completely change. Um, and it looks like that's happening, which is very, very exciting. Um, and there's people like this guy. Man, this guy was president. France. Man, France just needs to wake up. Um, I mean, this guy was president for a long time, from 81 to 1995. And what do you know? What happens after 1995? Well, that's when the Glass-Steagall Act got repealed, right? And Bill Clinton was in office, right? And that's when the banks just started consolidating like crazy. And what do you know? You end up getting Emmanuel Macron, who literally worked for the Rothschilds. So it's like, you know, the the propaganda machine has done a really good job of making it seem crazy to talk about the Rothschilds, but literally that's where Emmanuel Macron worked. Like, I feel like it's like, so I feel so gaslighted, even the fact that um I have to like bring this up and show it. Like, it's like, oh, like, it's, not really a thing. It's like, dude, it's totally a thing. Right? um right here, Rothschild and Co, right? I mean, it's just I mean, they are still really in control, and they have been. And everyone that pushes back against them literally just gets killed. Right? So, um I mean, there's just through that lens, it makes everything make sense. And so it's like, I just think that, like, I've been trying to scrutinize Trump because I really want to make sure he's not doing, like, I mean, I'm still not excited about the whole AI powered panopticon surveillance state. Like that's still absolutely terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. But it's like I'm seeing the trend, like they already were spying on us like crazy. And at least now there's a focus on building rather than literally psyops and coups. So um it's hopefully, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, right now it's not like I'm ignoring the Gaza Israel situation or I mean, literally, man, having a huge investment in OpenAI and Oracle just sounds just horrible. Um, yeah, like absolutely horrible. So yeah, that's what I'm, I guess watching. But the other things actually make me really excited. So we'll see. I hope that helps some people to know for various reasons. I don't know. I mean, know what seems to be the agenda, right? Why it is that why is it that Qatar is really excited about GameStop, right? Why would they be investing? It's like, well, to go back to this thing is before George Soros did this Arab Spring thing. The United States had a really good relationship with the Gulf countries, and it was good for them because it's like, okay, well, they would use our dollar because our dollar was good and the relationship with us was good because we were actually building stuff and doing stuff and um like but then Obama is just selling us out to these globalists that are, just funneling money into DEI crap, right? And just total glorifying literally mental illness and just depravity. And so to see a lot of that change is just amazing, right? I mean, it's like, oh, like free transgender surgeries for children. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not I try to be more libertarian with a lot of things. Like, I think less rules is better, but like kids should w- kids should definitely not be getting their genitals mutilated, and the government definitely shouldn't be paying for it. Like, they definitely shouldn't be endorsing it or paying for it. So, um, yeah. Anyway, there was a lot of things. It's I hope it was interesting. I hope at least something on here like made you think like it's worth looking into. Um there's oh, speaking of like unknown ones, man, this list, there's that uh because I am trying to figure out the relationship between Netanyahu and Trump, because like I was very excited when Trump told Netanyahu back in his first administration to chill out on the settlements, right? Like that was really cool. So I thought, but like here's like this like list. So I'm going through this list and trying to figure out what's going on here. This was, and then like they have numbers, and I think this is just like how this like Rupert Murdoch is here, and Sheldon Adelson and Ronald Lauder, right? Like, you know, I don't know. Stephen Ballmer, Carl Icahn, like I don't know. I mean, there's something important here. Samuel Zell, David Geffen, but like the thing is, like these people, yeah, they're ranked on. Like, what are they ranked on? Because like these people really don't have. Like Carl Icahn is definitely straight, right? Like he loves women, right? Uh, and so, what is he doing with like on the same list, same kind of ranking as David Geffen, who's a flaming homosexual, right? Like it doesn't make sense. Also, why would Edgar Bronfman be on the same? I don't know. Like he seems a lot more powerful. Um, Chaim Sabin, he's a Democrat mega donor, right? So it's like I don't know. It's just really weird. Lots of questions. I am kind of the problem is there's just too many connections. It's like it gets. Oh, this one was interesting. What did I find on here that was like? Yeah, Rupert Murdoch is on the Strategic Advisory Council for Genie Energy Ltd, which is owned by the Rothschilds. So that's interesting. Also, I was kind of circling things like who came in to bail out this guy, Gerald Ronson, right? Because he was on the Epstein list. And so Bill Gates helped bail him out. Rupert Murdoch helped bail him out. This Craig McGraw guy from the Hoover Institute, right? So that's CIA. I don't know, just kind of weird. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And I know that whatever's going on has really old, really deep roots, and it's kind of scary. And also, man, totally sad. I remember doing like a presentation on Benjamin Franklin. And I thought he was cool because he was an inventor. And now I'm like, oh man, like he was a total shill. Yeah, rip to my old thoughts about Benjamin Franklin. Like a lot of really dark things. Like anyway, Ford models. I know there was Ford models, like the Ford model, like foundation type stuff. Glenn Dubin's sus. James Watson's sus. Dude, seriously, this American Humanist Society, like it is. Humanist of the Year, Anthony Fauci, right? Okay, think about this. This group, which they combined in this time when, like 2010 kind of era, all these groups. You had the Society for Humanistic Judaism, Secular Coalition for America. So I was looking into this because of so the Church of Satan guy who started his own church, the Temple of Set, Michael Aquino, right? This is his son, right? Basically is using this humanist humanist association or whatever to kind of justify putting like his satanic church, anyway, getting special privileges for a satanic church within the military, right? So that was just weird to find like one of like the most satanic people in the world was this Michael Aquino guy, and like the connections to the military and through this American Humanist Association, right? And they awarded Anthony Fauci Humanist of the Year. Like, in what world would that be the case? And what do you know? Those letters at the top, he was Fellowship of the Royal Society, right? Like, I'm sorry, England, but like all the most disgusting things in the entire planet go back to your Royal Society. Like, you guys need to figure that shiz out, or we should come figure it out for you, because like it's disgusting. Like Jimmy Savile, right? If people haven't looked up who Jimmy Savile is, you really need to look him up, because he's really messed up. And he was really high up in this whole Royal Society thing. He was like a major presenter on the BBC. He was like the face of freaking Britain, and he was literally killing children. And it's not like a conspiracy theory. It's like straight up fact. Yeah. Who was this? Oh, Rebecca Goldstein. I can't remember what she had to do with board. Oh, she's on the board of the American Humanist Society. This guy's on the Epstein list. I'm pretty sure. I think he went to the islands. Yeah. Relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, Oh, speaking of things like that I used to think were cool, like Benjamin Franklin. I mean, I remember when Jordan Peterson first came on the scene. So this guy signed the Humanist. So in 2024, Krauss edited the book The War on Science, a collection of 39 prominent scholars addressing threats to academic freedom and scientific progress. Contributors include Richard Dawkins, Peter and Jordan Peterson, Steven Pinkers, who also was on the Epstein Island, right? It's like you can't make this stuff up. Like this is like he was super close to Epstein, this guy, right? So it's like, how is it that Jordan Peterson is that close to Jeffrey Epstein? Like, is that why he's like kind of, I don't know, throwing his whole reputation out the window? Yeah, Enlightenment Now, the case for reason, science, and humanism. I mean, it's just like there's Epstein, like Jordan Peterson was like platforming this guy so much. So I was trying to. Peter Soros was in the Epstein book, Little Black Book. So I was trying to figure out a way to visually show what the problem is. And you have these universities. You got Berkeley, Harvard, McGill University, which literally was like a huge player, is the Bronfman family in there. MIT, Columbia, where Doug Steve was, and this one. If people don't know what the New School is, yeah, that's literally where. So when they got all the Nazi scientists and just, I guess, Jewish people from Germany after World War II, they came to Columbia, and the ones that were too radical for even Columbia, which was already really radical, went to the New School. So this one is dark. Like, if you guys don't know what the New School is, you might want to look into that, because, like, I mean, that's crazy, crazy stuff. But yeah, David Rockefeller definitely on the list. So Ken Griffin, man, I haven't flushed this out yet, but his wife, the American Enterprise Institute. Yeah. Anyway, definitely some interesting connections there. So the universities, and then you have the big banks. You got Goldman Sachs, UBS, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank. And then you can see which ones they've cannibalized. So Bank of America cannibalized, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan did Robert Fleming's. They did, which was like a really old bank. They did the Chemical Bank. They also cannibalized First Republic Bank, and then UBS, Kidder and Peabody Company, which actually so Peabody started JP Morgan. JP Morgan's dad worked for whatever the Peabody guy's name is. And then somehow it just turned into two banks. Not really sure what all happened there, but then they end up getting bought out by. Actually, no, I think this was Anyway, they got bought out by Payne Weber, who was then bought out by UBS. But they also bought out First Boston, which is where Doug Sifu's wife works, and this is where the Kidder and Peabody. I mean, that's like the old money. Like that's like whoever that Peabody guy is. Like, he was a merchant in England. I don't know. I mean, I think he must have been like really making a lot of money from the drug trade or something, slave trade, because that's just a lot of influence came from here. I mean, UBS and JP Morgan, came from here. So Julian Robertson from Tiger Global Management. Most of Wall Street is controlled by the Tiger Cubs, which are all the little hedge funds that ended up coming out of Tiger Global Management. I forgot I found this. Robert Hearst. Yeah, I think this guy was on the Epstein list. Yeah, Robert J. Hairston has a lot of different numbers on there. So Aspen Institute, right? They hate Trump. Council on Foreign Relations, they hate Trump. National Cyber Center, they hate Trump. So it's just kind of interesting when you see someone on the Epstein list like this. It's just really not surprising that they're all part of these either federal agencies or these kind of social engineering or special interest like groups. Let's see. Oh, and here's the one that saw Sandy Wheel, right? That's the guy, right? This is the one that stalks me. Alpha Epsilon Pi. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, they're really, really, really weird. Oh yeah, so you have the universities, mostly like Ivy League kinds. You have the banks, and then you have the law firms, right? And that's like kind of what controls things. You also have like the different natural resources, I guess, like gas, oil, and stuff. But these law firms, right, like Paul Weiss, right, that's where Doug Seafood comes from, and his wife comes from. This was this is just kind of a random connection. The Rotary is definitely involved. Literally, Kamala Harris is a Rotary fellow. But it was interesting that I found, so through Paul Weiss, I was like, okay, well, this chick and then her husband, he's part of the Owl Club, right? So that's Harvard, and Trump's been going after Harvard, right? Which used to be the Alpha Epsilon. And then it led me to another guy that happened to be on the Epstein list. Well, I guess his dad, their dad was on the Epstein list, but this guy, George Richard Minot, right? So it's like like these trends end up being very predictable to find, to know where to look. And it's like, oh, what do you know? You get a confirmation. It's like, how is it that like I ended up finding that person on the list through just looking through Paul Weiss, who represents most of the more Epstein victims than anyone else. So anyway, there's a lot here. I don't know what I should go into. I'm kind of just putting it all out there for it so that it's just out there. If someone's like really curious about Epstein, and it'll maybe spark give them an idea of a rabbit hole they want to go down. Like, what's the connection between Charles Manson, Timothy Leary, and Alan Greensburg, right? There's Jimmy Savile, right? Sir Jimmy Savile, right? Jeez. It's like you guys are knighting people that you literally should be beheading, right? It's just unbelievable. And then this guy, right? So how is this the right and honorable, right? Good job, England. Lord Black of Cross Harbor, right? He's on the Epstein list, right? And he's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg group. Come on. Like, what the heck is going on? What else is... there's a video, Surviving Trumpism, right? So anyway, there was it's just like the institutional people, right? This managerial class just really hates Trump. And this is supposed to be like not this is so this is one, the American Philosophical Society, super random, right? That's super messed up, right? It's like how to stay in power is this society, right? And you got idiots like this Norm Ornstein guy, right? Look at that. Dude, that guy needs some testosterone, right? For sure. Maybe he'll stop wanting to wanting to abuse children if he had some testosterone. What was? Oh, so this was interesting. So I was just going to put everyone from the Epstein book and then put them into categories of who hates Trump and who doesn't. And there's a lot of people in the book, and that's also part of the problem. You know, most of these names don't even get talked about. It's like crazy. Like people just talk about like a small handful of people, but like Nordstrom's, right? That like literally like one of the Nordstrom family members, like the main people, right? He's in the book, right? And so it's like Mark Triton has very close Epstein connections, right? Because he's connected on one side through Doug Sifu, on the other side through literally the Nordstrom family. But you just go through all like these lists, and a lot of these people, maybe other people know. I need to fill in more information. It's just a lot. But like Hollywood, right? Do these people hate or love Trump? David Geffen, Oprah Winfrey, Rosie O'Donnell. So actually, this was the Black Book. So I actually asked, Grok to just compile a list of all the people that were either in the Black Book or on the flights or had in their sort of connection to him. Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, right? Like Martha Stewart, Jon Stewart, right? All these people hate Trump. So it's just super weird. Ben Affleck. You get into the media, all these people, a lot of them from CNN. Yeah. Oh, there's our friend Jerome Powell. Jeez. He's the worst. He's literally the worst because it's owned by Dylan Reed and Co., which is owned by now UBS, right? And they're the ones that are benefiting from those renovations, and just they're the head of the world drug trade. So, like the illegal drug trade. And also just like why they're like these Ivy League schools are bad, but also their feeder high schools are also bad. It's really weird. Like, yeah, it's weird stuff goes on at those. Like that one's Phillips Executor. And because these schools were built on opium trade money and slave trade money. Yeah. All right. Well, oh yeah. So I was trying to go down Michael Patcher. Yeah. I do want to expose that guy. I know he's connected. I did find Epstein connection through this guy, Alki David. Guy's freaking weird. But anyway, yeah. So there's a lot here. I'm not sure which. If anyone wants to let me know I keep getting drawn back into like the really long ago history. Like, I mean, I've been literally, like, it sounds crazy. Just following these elite power structures from like, 2000 years ago, possibly like longer, 3000 years ago, all the way to today. And it's crazy how consistent they are. Um, yeah. So like the whole thing is fascinating to me. I don't know what exactly should be done. I just know that people should be aware of, I don't know what's really going on. I mean, I just haven't really seen any productive conversation around Epstein, and hopefully this kind of opens up the conversation to more things that should be talked about. Oh, Glencore. Yeah, that's definitely part of the problem. Mark Rich is Glencore. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, there's just so much to do with Epstein that is more associated with these very liberal things. And as much as, like, I don't want to come across as like an apologist of, Trump or Epstein or anything, but like, I think that, I don't know, exploiting people, that's like, if Epstein was, one of the things he did was like a glorified matchmaker, where he would place these girls into, really high up positions, right? And one of them, she was like, yeah, I got married when she was in like Thailand studying massage or whatever. She's like, I was scared to tell him. And he was like, so it's like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think that he was working with people that were obviously, abusing children and, killing children, all the horrible stuff. And I'm not saying he wouldn't participate, but I think that people did interact with him in ways that were, I don't want to say good. I'll just say status quo, right? Like France has an age of consent of 14 years old. That's disgusting, in my opinion, right? But apparently, France is fine with it. I don't think that makes it okay. I think France should change that, right? But the other countries don't really. I mean, Sweden, I think theirs is like 15 years old or something. So it's like, it's not. So if Trump says that, Epstein likes them on the younger end, and he's out there hooking up with, 14-year-old girls in France, that's technically legal in France. And so it's like, we should hold France accountable for their really immoral laws. Like, that's so dumb. And they're trying, anyway, like, so there's that element, right? But I think the dark side that he was interacting with, and was, this really liberal side, right, where they are atheist and really don't see any problem with a lot of really messed up things, and because they don't believe there's any afterlife, any sort of moral accountability, they just don't believe in it, right? And that all comes from these liberal things, where it's an eat, drink, can be merry, for tomorrow we die. And I mean, just I was actually planning on just calling it, but I don't know. I mean, someone's going to be watching this at some point and be like, wow, I'm really glad like found some like, this is the Rothschilds right here, like this picture, right? And I'm not like it's not even like it's It's straight up. It's not like they're like hiding it. It's like, this is like, hey, this is our cool eccentric party, right? This is Baron Guy de Rothschild, right? Like, horns and then furry plates with lips on it. Like, it's like, that's creepy AF, right? Like, I, but to them, oh, it's surrealist, right? Like, this, like, why would you have a baby, like a baby? I don't even know what that is, but it's like, this is at the table is like this, like, looks like a doll that's been put in the oven and torn apart, right? So it's like, you have this inclusive capitalism stuff started by the Vatican and the Rothschilds, and they're doing this kind of stuff. Like, that's where I think the really messed up stuff is. And Jeffrey Epstein was part of that, but I don't think Trump was part of that. And I mean, I'm not gonna like turn a blind eye if I see it, but anyway, I just think there's a huge difference between people doing this kind of stuff. If they're showing pictures of this, what they're actually doing, that we don't see. And I mean, like, there's Audrey Hepburn, right, in a cage, right, as if she's a bird in a cage, and then like this, like, double, like a head on top of the head, and I don't even know. It's super weird. I just, um, I just think that's where the darkest stuff is really happening. And what was I? What else was I? Maybe it's just that. We'll just, I guess we'll just leave it there. Anyway, appreciate you all. I hope something piqued your interest, because I really think we should talk about this stuff. I think it matters. I think that it's sad that most people are either not capable of having like productive conversation about important things, or they don't even care to do it. And so it's just kind of terrifying that it seems like, people that care to be in charge are just in charge, and no one really pushes back, right, in any sort of effective way. So, like, this is literally satanic. This is Marina Abramovich, right? And Baron Rothschild, or whatever his name was. And this is literally Lucifer. Like, it's like, they're not even like hiding. They're like, this is what we're doing, right? And that's, you got Jay-Z, and it's like, this is Andy Warhol. That's where all the drugs were being pushed through, is like his factory. He had like this Andy Warhol's factory, and he had literally members that represented each different part of like the Silk Road drug trade at his factory, like bringing in the drugs, and then they would, ship the drugs out and sell them at the different festivals and stuff. And what is this society of the elect that got started, right? I don't know. I just, I hope people ask some questions, and I hope things really change. And appreciate you all for watching. I mean, you're a real one if you're still here. So anyway, we don't have to have any special permission to stand up and do what's right. You don't need a title or a degree, or you don't need to be knighted to go on a crusade. But you just starts with figuring out what the problem is, to be able to do something about it. And there's it's a complicated problem, but I think we can tackle it. And anyway, I appreciate you all, and I'll catch you later.